Hey folks, how's it going? KGB313 here. I am a Twitch streamer and I play a lot of Overwatch on my stream, so I just wanted to post a video here to respond to an issue that keeps coming up within the community, and I really feel like it's something that is not a good thing for Overwatch, and I am talking about role select. Um, I follow Unit Lost. I'm a big fan of Stylosa, and I know he mentions role select quite a bit. Um, One thing I do agree with him on is I think a guild system or a clan system, whatever you prefer to call it, would be a good thing for the game, but it's not ultimately going to solve the problem. Anytime you've got a game where teamwork is a key, obviously it's going to be tougher to play with randoms than to play with a set team. So telling people to just go get yourself a good team is not really a solution. Having support for that in the game allows people to create these like-minded communities, makes it easier for that to happen. But that's ultimately players fixing a problem that is made by players, which is people not working together. When we're talking about hard-coded solutions like a role select, there are some problems involved. One of the first problems with a role select is all we got to do is look at World of Warcraft. DPS have the longest queues of all because it's the most popular role. Most people don't want to play tank, they don't want to play healer. And I mean, the reality is that you're going to have the longest queue times if you are playing um, purely DPS. Some people have suggested doing things like a primary secondary sort of thing, and that gets abused in World of Warcraft too. You get people that have no intention of playing tank, no intention of playing healer, and they'll put that secondary in there in the hopes that it speeds up their queue times, which brings up the other issue. Uh, in a game like World of Warcraft, some of the limitation is based on what character you play. And just the nature of MMOs is that you're going to sink a lot of time into each character. Level 110 mage, you've sunk hours and hours into this character, and it can only DPS. It doesn't even have the option to fill another role. So you're kind of stuck with it. Now, granted, you can have multiple characters and all that good stuff, and some characters can fulfill multiple roles, but odds are, you're looking at the majority of DPS players out there are playing one character in an MMO, which is normal. In Overwatch, it's not. Everybody has access to the full roster. So what that means is that in Overwatch, it's much more about kind of selfish reasons, if you will, why people are selecting one role over another. One of the third things that I have to say about role select is that I'm not a great player, but I honestly feel like if you don't know how to at least competently play one hero from each role, at least one, ideally two, if you can't play at least one hero from each role, I think you're an incomplete player. That's my personal opinion. You one tricks out there, I don't think you're a complete player. I think that's all you got. You got one trick up your sleeve, and you might be great at it. You might be the world's best Genji, but if you can't pick up Diva and at least, at least hold your own, then you're doing something wrong, and you need to correct that. And of course, you've got the major problem that goes along with role select, which is if it's just a suggestion, you have no basis to know if somebody's actually going to do what they said they're going to do. The flip side to it is if you lock them into a role, now you've got questions about, like, how does the game determine what what meta to go off of? We've had triple tank, we've had quad tank builds before. There's different comps that are out there that are effective. So how do you maintain that, and how do you maintain the flexibility? If you've got somebody that's a mercy one trick, and the bottom line is that they're not getting the job done as Mercy, they're getting picked on or countered, and the team needs something else. Well, what does that Mercy do? They're locked into that healer role and they don't play any of the other healers. And at that point, they don't even have the option to switch to a DPS or a tank if they're locked into a healer role. I think there is an alternate solution, and I think it's actually a better way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what that is, and it is a lockout system. And how this works is it basically goes off of the typical first come first serve sort of thing. Like, everybody plays games where as soon as the hero screen comes up, somebody's auto locking a DPS instantly. Bam. As soon as they can, they lock a DPS. And that player rarely gets asked to switch unless they're playing a really off meta hero. So that first come first serve is generally how it goes. And if you're one of the last to pick, you are usually expected to pick either a tank or a DPS if the team needs one. So what it does is it basically codifies that. It says if there are 4 DPS on a team, then the last 2 players, the DPS characters, will be grayed out. If there are 4 DPS and 1 tank, then everybody but the healers will be grayed out. And vice versa. So what it does is it makes sure that every team has 1 tank, 1 healer. No other restrictions. As much as I might like to enforce the too many snipers rule, no. You need your team to be as flexible as possible. But asking for 1 tank and 1 healer is not excessive. Now, I've heard some criticisms of this idea, but I don't think that they really have all that much merit. The first criticism is that, you're locking players into a role, you're limiting flexibility, but you're not locking them into the role. If I'm the last to pick and the team needs a healer, I have to pick a healer. There's nothing wrong with that. If I can't play a healer, that's when it's time for me to get on the mic and say, hey, I'm not any good at any of these healers. Can somebody else take one? Otherwise, I think we may lose the game. You can still communicate like that. You can still negotiate that. Nothing locks me into the healer role for the entire game. The only thing that happens is if I want to switch to a DPS, somebody else has to switch to a healer first. And what this does is it allows for the team comp to be whatever we want it to be, as long as there's a healer and as long as there's a tank somewhere on the team. The other criticism that I hear a lot is that players are going to behave badly if they don't get to play what they want. Guess what? That already happens. It already happens, man. If you take somebody that's a Genji main and he doesn't get to play Genji, a lot of them are going to flip out. They're going to throw games. They're going to leave the game. Stuff like that. That already happens. And it's a sad reality, but it's true. And they very well may jump onto Mercy and play her as a battle Mercy all around. But guess what? That's what the reporting system is there for. When you have somebody throwing games, they can be reported for it. When you have somebody that jumps on to the only healer on the team and plays her as a battle Mercy, guess what? They're going to have very low healing for the round. So when you report them for refusing to heal, it's going to show in the numbers, and your report's going to be valid. So you've got that, and when people leave, that's what the leaver rules are in place for them to be punished for it. So it's nothing that's not happening already. But the one thing that it does is it guarantees that every team you have will have a tank, will have a healer. Doesn't mean they're going to be any good, but you're at least going to have one on the team. And most people, if they have no choice, they're going to say, okay, well, you know what? I got to play tank this round. May as well try and play it as well as I can. And if they have to play them often, they're going to get better at them. People don't like to just play things that they're bad at and just suck at them and lose. they're going to try to improve at those rules, and it's going to make them a more complete player in the long run. So ideally, that would drive us to a point where either the one tricks find themselves teams with the guild system, or they expand out of necessity and they learn to play some more heroes. Um, and quite frankly, I personally feel like if you can't fill another role well enough to help your team win, you deserve the SR loss that comes from losing games due to that. Because, like I said, I feel like it makes you an incomplete player. The only gripe that I consider legitimate as far as the lockout system goes is people that complain about, well, I've got a slow PC or a bad ISP, and I'm always one of the last to load in. I'm never going to be one of those people that's able to lock in first. Hey, as somebody that came up and started streaming on an i7 920 with a 3-year-old graphics card, and I actually started playing Overwatch on what was it, 5770 card. So believe me, I know all about playing on a weak PC and playing with a bad ISP. If you're the last to lock in, you're the last to lock in. It's no different than if you're playing on a laptop where you're getting 10 FPS. You're playing against somebody that's pulling 200 FPS. It's not fair, but when you're playing with a low-end system or a bad ISP, do what everybody has to, and that is you make do. Again, that's where you want to bust out those negotiation skills and hop on the mic and say, look, man, I can do better in this other role. I can do better as a DPS than I can as a healer. So that's the kind of stuff you have to do if that's the case. But I firmly believe, I think a lockout, one, it would be easier to implement. It keeps everybody in the queuing the same way. Yes, you have a possibility of 5 DPS mains in competitive, like all winding up on the same team and nobody wanting to play healer. But the difference is that now, when it comes down to that last guy to lock in, you know he's going to take a healer. He's not going to just jump on Hanzo and throw the game for you. So, there you go. That's what I got for you today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like. I do most of my broadcasting on Twitch, so if you prefer, please check me out there. It's twitch.tv/KGB313. And you can see my social media information below if you'd like to follow me on Twitter. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again soon.